Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, David.
And today we are back with our second part of the multi-part episode on USAGM, the U.S. Agency of Global Media.
Oh yeah, the propaganda wing.
The propaganda wing of the United States. Before we get started, just to do some intro stuff, we are also still working on the multi-part thing over on our Patreon.
Oh, the Cambridge 5.
The Cambridge 5.
I gave you an early birthday present, and I was just reading about Kim Philby's work in Albania in the late 40s in that William Blum book, Killing Hope.
The thing about the William Blum book, Killing Hope, is I've read excerpts of it online when I've been researching certain places, but I've never read the whole thing start to finish. So there are all sorts of countries, because it's laid out by country, right?
Yeah.
Based on, U.S. intervention. That I just haven't looked into at all. So I'm really excited about that. I, unfortunately, right now am reading at the same time 6 different books about North Korea, I think.
I feel like you keep going. You have hoed that row.
Oh, that's a phrase. That's a phrase.
Rowing a hoe?
I don't know this phrase at all.
That is a hard row to hoe is definitely a phrase that people say.
That's a thing people say often? I've definitely heard people say that before. Often, even.
Yeah, like in a garden with a hoe.
Yeah, no, yeah. I guessed. I guessed as much. The North Korea thing, like everything, it starts with a fight, and then I'm like, now I gotta find my sources. And then once I go back to the sources, I'm like, oh my god, this is so interesting. I forgot I really wanted to read more about this thing, and this thing, and this thing. So the most interesting book that I'm reading as part of this is actually, it's the one that's called Selling the Korean War. Mm-hmm. And it's strictly about American propaganda efforts.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, to get, but it doesn't have anything to do with the period between 1945 and 1950. It starts in 1950 with the start of the Korean War, where the United States was like, we gotta go to war, and we gotta convince American people that they really gotta back us.
And then it's like the United Nations Army.
That too.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. Like that was like the right.
It was like the first UN war, and I think a lot of, especially like liberal people, think the UN, the good guys, but it's like no. Anybody who knows about the UN knows it's not the good guys. Bad guys. MINUSTA, Haiti.
It's not.
They're not up to good.
I did actually read it's like each section gets like a 2 to 3 page little it's like a good resource for what's the broad what's the headline.
It really is great for that. Yeah.
But it was the no one in Korea liked Sigmund Rhee.
Yeah.
Everyone was just like, this guy sucks. This guy's so they had to sell him to Koreans.
Yes, they did.
But it's Selling the Korean War?
Yeah.
Who's it by?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I have the copy of the book. Should I go get it and let Fork out right now?
Sure.
Okay, but that means you have to talk to the people about. Tell them what's going on with the Cambridge 5 while I do that.
Oh, yeah. So the Cambridge 5 is our Patreon thing. At the moment, we are up to the spying point. So we are talking about John Cairn Cross and Fork is being weird. And the Cambridge 5 are very, very gay spies who worked for the Soviet Union. Okay, thank God Madeline's back.
Is it hard?
It's hard to talk by yourself.
Okay, so the book is called Selling the Korean War, Propaganda, Politics, and Public Opinion, 1950 to 1953, and it is by Stephen Casey. And it's a really, really good read so far. This is my first time reading through this one. I had again read excerpts of it before, but not the whole thing. And it's super interesting. So I'm really happy to be rereading this book. It's got some nice photos in it as well, and just pretty good primer. So that's what's going on over on our Patreon, and also in my personal book reading.
Yeah.
Life.
I'm reading a novel.
Oh, you are.
Interesting
for you.
I like novels. What's interesting for me?
I guess you do like novels. I know this about you. Jane Austen?
I'm not reading. I have exhausted my Jane Austen. Oh God, what's the? There's some English philosopher who wrote The Problem of Mind or some shit in like the early 20s, who once said an answer to the question, do you read novels? Yes, I read all 6 every year. meaning all 6 Jane Austen novels every
Got
year.
it. Okay. I didn't get that reference. Much like the hoeing the row reference from earlier. It seems we have different cultural markers. Also, though, you didn't know about microplastics in the balls. So we each have a specialized
apparently
knowledge
is like a
subset.
thing on the end. I like looked it up and I was like, oh, people talk about this is like there are like influencer types, but it gets very, the vibe felt very Ojai.
The microplastics in the balls vibe felt Ojai to you?
Like, people worrying about it felt very Ojai.
Okay, yeah. So Ojai, for anybody not from California, O-J-A-I.
Yeah.
It is, I don't know, like a town a little bit outside of LA. Like, basically, if you're leaving LA, you're either going to go to Joshua Tree for the weekend or Ojai. And Ojai is like the woodsy one. It's like you're in the mountains, kind of.
But it's also on the coast, kind of. Or like near the coast.
Yeah, and then you're like going on hikes to the river surrounded by trees. Whereas Joshua Tree is just a vast open desert.
I will say, like, at some point, if you live in Los Angeles long enough, you will get some kind of vintage jacket. And if it has a fringe on it, you will announce to everyone that you have started listening to a lot of Graham Parsons and you're going to Joshua Tree a lot.
This is
that
totally
will happen.
true. So Ojai is also part of the LA cultural experience.
Ojai, it's like you get something linen.
Yes.
And
maybe Birkenstocks.
Some Birkenstocks, and you are going on a retreat.
Yes, that makes sense.
It's like a meditation thing and a detox.
Yeah, that could be. And these are the people that David thinks are caring a lot about having microplastics in your body.
Yeah.
I would say 1 to 10. My concern about microplastics is at a 3.5 or 4.
It's concerning, but it's one of those things where it's like there are so many things, including microplastics, coming through the door of my anxiety.
Yeah.
At this point, that I'm like,
the microplastics isn't the
they're
biggest
so
one.
small.
Yeah, they are. They're micro.
Yeah.
Sometimes even nano. Yeah. So we are getting into the episode today on our main, the second part of the USAGM. I gotta go get Fork again. Really mean.
Yeah, I feel like you gotta do the thing where you
it.
like tuck the dog under your shirt or something.
Come on, Fork.
Because there's no.
You know, she's.
Do you have like a blanket you can wrap her in?
Yeah, I'll do something. She's been really emotional lately. She's had a rough few weeks, I would say. You know, whenever my social life picks up, Fork gets very upset. I live in service to the creature.
So
when it's hot outside, the creature can't come lots of places because it's too hot out there. So then the creature has to stay home, and then she gets very angry.
You're
and
in a
very
dysfunctional, codependent relationship with your dog.
Yeah, Chris says that Fork and I have a very toxic relationship.
Yeah, I have. Earlier, I heard you get, I'm gonna say, snappish with Fork.
The thing is that Fork only listens to, dog owners know this, sometimes you have a dog that will only respond to an aggressive voice, like a strong voice, and it's always so infuriating because it's like, I haven't actually lost my temper at the small creature, but the small creature does not register my pitch of voice as anything other than happy or joyous at all times. So if I want to be like, don't eat that thing that's definitely gonna kill you, I have to be like, booming, angry voice, don't eat that thing that's definitely gonna kill you. And then I sound like I don't have patience and that the dog is in imminent danger. And then afterwards I have to be like, I'm sorry, it's okay, I'm not actually mad. She just doesn't listen unless I sound terrifying for some reason. So, you know, she's gaslighting me.
Yeah.
It's basically
and
toxic bond gaslighting me.
And you're yelling at her for having feelings.
Okay, trying to eat literal metal she finds on the floor.
It is a hardcore.
I mean, it is a feeling. She feels like she wants to eat it, I guess.
That is a feeling.
It is a feeling. She's you know, we do have a toxic, I'm not beating the allegations on this one. Fork and I have a toxic relationship. She needs me very much. She's trying to drive me insane. I also like her. You
often tell her that she would be lost without you. That if it weren't for you, she wouldn't have a place to sleep.
She's unlovable.
She's completely dependent on you.
I like to say that. Actually, back to back, I like to say, nobody will ever love you as much as I do. And also, I could take you back to the pound at any minute.
Yeah.
I think that's important for her to
do you hear that?
And know.
Fork.
She knows it now. She's on my lap. You know? It's a toxic bond. Okay, so before we get into part 2 of the USAGM, I do feel like we should do a brief recap of part 1. We skipped last week because I was at my friend's house, and you guys have said whenever we do the Zoom recording quality, everybody's like, this is atrocious, please don't. So we figured it's better to wait a week and give you an episode you can actually listen to than try to do it over Zoom. So that's why the consistency is a little off, but I think ultimately you guys will be happier with this than what we've been doing. So let's do the recap from 2 weeks ago when we did part 1 of the USAGM. David, what do you remember about it?
It's been 2 weeks, Madeline. I remember various news organizations.
Yes.
Were funded by USAGM, which was funded through the State Department.
Through its congressional approval for the funding.
Okay.
However, they do work in tandem with the State Department for messaging.
That jogged my memory.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
So,
I have the memory of a goldfish.
Okay, so the USAGM, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, was previously known as the Broadcasting Board of Governors. And I feel like most people have probably heard of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, but not the USAGM, which is its newest incantation. This certainly isn't the only incantations it's had, though. In the past, it went by many other different names and had various different types of organization. So while the areas of the government that oversee it have kind of bounced around and changed, what has remained consistent is that this is really where the messaging component of the U.S. government, the propaganda wing of our military efforts, really, truly, this is where it all resides. So there are several different news agencies that exist under the USAGM. And last week we talked about one in particular, Voice of America. And today we're going to talk about the other 4 to 5, depending on your definition. There's either 5 or 6, because there's 5 major news organizations, but there's also this other thing that has to do with internet technology that we're going to talk about as well. So,
is this the Radio Freeze? Are
these are the Radio Freeze, yes. Today we are going to talk about, out of the 5 main news organizations, the one we did last week is Voice of America. Today we're going to talk about Radio Free Europe / Radio Liberty. They kind of go hand in hand. Radio Free Asia. We're also going to talk about Radio and Television Marti, which is part of the Cuban efforts. And we're going to talk about the Middle Eastern Broadcasting Network, which is also kind of an umbrella. So the general way to remember this is that we know the CIA is out there doing propaganda, misinformation, disinformation all the time.
Yeah.
So basically, a good way to think about this, they don't all start this way, but several of them do. When the CIA creates a propaganda or misinformation outlet that gets too popular and starts getting a lot of attention, basically the federal government often swoops in, takes that entity, something like Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio Free Asia, and says we cannot have this tied to the CIA. It is too much of a liability. We are going to reform it as an independent agency, maybe a nonprofit, maybe an NGO, something like that. It will be funded now 100% through congressional funding measures rather than through the CIA, and we will kind of separate it from the CIA but still under the branch of the American government as much as possible to grant it legitimacy, and they will therefore get to do all of their operations above board, and we will kind of clear their name. So Congress kind of swoops in to save it, right? You know?
It's like Congress gentrifies these like abandoned buildings that the CIA has just been sitting there being like, we don't really know what to do with this, and Congress is like, we're going to put a little cafe in there.
I think a better way to think about it is imagine the mafia. And then you're a mob boss.
And you're like talking to your CIA handler.
No, you're talking to your idiot son. And you're like, kid, you got to learn the ropes to take over the crime syndicate one day. And the kid is like, Pops, you're old news. Crime's not where it is. We're going to go legit. We're going to go above board. We're going to open a chain of nightclubs.
But that's never, that, as we know from every mafia show ever, that never works.
It never works. But it is working for the United States. The Congress has come in, is the son, and is like, we are taking the business from you, Dad / CIA, and we are legitimizing it. We're going above board. We're not doing crime anymore. We're doing nightclubs.
So,
does this metaphor make sense for everybody listening? Is this the best metaphor I could have used to describe
in this analogy, the CIA is Congress's dad?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm not no. I'm just like, I actually in that William Blum book was reading about Alan Dulles a lot this week, and I was like,
CIA.
What a drunk loser. Like, just
messy
guy.
So basically we've got now, the USAGM with these 5 major news outlets, and then the one internet kind of firewall attempting thing we're going to talk about at the end of this episode. And these are the agencies that the United States government is using to spread its messaging, pro-American messaging, to other countries around the globe.
Okay.
Not to American citizens, although we will see as time goes on, this does start to change because of the amendments made to the law that originally said American citizens shouldn't be exposed to this type of propaganda. There was the Smith-Mund Act. That was recently changed to say, well, maybe the Americans can be exposed to the propaganda we spend $800 million a year creating if they request it. And as we'll see, the idea of what requesting the information means gets really blurry in the internet age, because if you go to radiofreeeurope.com, have you not requested to see the information?
Oh, that's right. We did this last week, and it was very not illuminating. Like, there was nothing there.
Well, I mean, you can go to these websites. We're actually going to do a breakdown. Voice of America, remember from last time we did these episodes, is the most quote-unquote legitimate of the USAGM broadcasters. The thing is, what we'll see is all of these different places are supposed to have different personalities.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to feel like different news sources.
It's like a boy band.
It's like a boy band, exactly.
Yeah.
So out of the boy band, the 5 members, Voice of America is supposed to be the above-board, trustworthy, credible one that's doing real journalism. However, if you listen to the last episode, we know that those journalists still had the State Department review all of their articles and talking points, not all of them, but the significant ones, and tell them what words they were allowed to say and not say, and tell them exactly how to report on what.
It's Justin Timberlake before the, like, DUI arrest thing.
He was the sweet boy, the boy next door, the one you want to take home to mom.
Yeah.
That's Voice of America. So, today we're going to be talking about the other parts of the USAGM, and we are going to start with Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. So, before we get into this second of the 5 news sources, David, you think I've done a good job recapping?
Yeah, I think we got. I am caught up back to where I was.
Okay, all right, you're back in. So, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, I feel like are some of the most interesting because I feel like a lot of people have heard of these. I feel like maybe even Americans have heard of these. Remember, since all of these propaganda efforts were directed in other countries, Voice of America reaches a ton of different countries. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty reaches a lot of different countries. We'll see too. They're kind of like the second highest funded news network under the U.S. Agency for Global Media. A lot of Americans don't even know these things exist. Your average American doesn't know about them. But I do feel like some Americans have heard of Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. So, before Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty existed, the United States was trying broadcasting propaganda efforts in Europe. The most notable thing that the United States government was up to was something called RIAS, Radio in the American Sector. So this at the time was based in West Berlin and broadcasting at first to Germans in Berlin and later to all of the German Democratic Republic, which was East Germany, the commie side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the goals that we'll see with all this USAGM stuff is when these agencies got started, they were really targeting citizens in our political enemies, countries that we are like, that country does not align with our values. We want to broadcast to their citizens to get them sympathetic to the American point of view.
And it was, West Germany and East Germany had very different post-war experiences, right? West Germany also got, like, the Marshall Plan, which is very...
Right, and we actually mentioned this. They gave back the German Marshall Fund to the United States.
Yeah.
As a thank you for being the beneficiaries of the Marshall Plan. And the German Marshall Fund, some people have accused it of being a CIA front, and we do know multiple people involved with the German Marshall Fund are tied to the CIA.
And obviously the experience of World War I had a lot to do with, like, the German economy in the interwar period, but it does feel weird to be like, you know what we're going to do to, like, the recent Nazis? Give them money and factories and technical knowledge.
Right. I mean, and then also import the Nazis to the United States under Operation Paperclip and give them whole new names and identities and have them work for our governments.
Right, like that, but I feel like the Soviet Union's, I think it's just, like, to understand, like, what was, like, the propaganda that the East Germans were getting, the Soviet Union had a very much, like, we will be dismantling East Germany type approach to, like, the fact that Nazis had killed millions.
Right, to fascism.
Yeah.
And regardless of your opinion on communism, on the USSR, everybody has to agree factually that the USSR defeated the Nazis, was fighting fascism in that respect. and really did the most to take on the Nazis at the time.
Like, suffered, I think it's like 45 million?
Millions of
casualties. And so I think there is I think it's just worth contextualizing, like, West Germany is thriving because they're getting, like, all that sweet, sweet American money.
Right.
And East Germany has basically been dismantled. Like, it's been de-industrialized.
So, the United States is like, we gotta get this propaganda going to talk about how awesome the United States is and make all of Germany basically be so grateful for the United States and love the United States. And this kind of operation, RIAS, Radio in the American Sector, right, for most of its existence, it was a partnership between the U.S. government and the government of the former Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany. And this lasted until the fall of the Berlin Wall, basically. Mm-hmm. So the U.S. government ceased funding for RIAS, and the service was ended in the early 1990s. The success of it, though, kind of left a hole. Every time the CIA and the government kind of lose a propaganda information source, like we saw with Voice of America, it originally was started for World War II. World War II comes to a close. They're like, but we built it from the ground up. What do? We don't just close it.
We have this beautiful infrastructure.
We have this plan. We have this infrastructure. We got to keep this going.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what happened. The RIAS success paved the way in the 1950s for Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty to take hold. And sometimes you will see these things abbreviated as RFE/RL, because we will see they started out as two different things and then they became integrated. So RFE/RL is a really common way people talk about them. Kind of like how Voice of America was abbreviated as VOA. So these were two radio services that started broadcasting to Central and Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union in the early 1950s. And they were born from something called the Committee for a Free Europe that had been put together by the CIA in the 1940s. They always have these same kind of names. There was I think there was also like a Committee for Free Asia for a while. They're, again, CIA, they're not poets, okay? They might hire poets.
Some of them, a friend of mine was texting me and was like, you need to do a deep dive on Jack Gilbert, who apparently went on, like, a State Department sponsored visit through Europe in, like, the 70s. And I was like, he probably didn't know.
I mean, he was probably part of the Long Leash program like Jackson Pollock.
Right, I mean, I was like, I don't know what Jack Gilbert's, like, I don't like his poetry anyway. I think it's dumb.
But, the CIA was paying artists and poets to make work that we thought we could kind of spin to make the United States look so free and so cool. So RFE, Radio Free Europe, that one originally was broadcasting to Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Albania, Romania, and Bulgaria in 1950. And they marketed themselves as broadcasting, quote, behind the Iron Curtain. Have you ever heard that? Broadcasting from behind the Iron Curtain?
This is right, we heard the rock and roll, like on our shortwave AM radios in Czechoslovakia or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal, like we kind of touched on last week, is to be like, Americans are coming with blue jeans and freedom. You love it.
And McDonald's. I will say, it did produce really fucking good, Yugoslavian new wave.
Oh. That's pretty cool.
I think their Yugoslavian video sex.
Okay.
So good.
Yeah. Well, we see that all of this was always extremely politically motivated by the United States part. From behind the Iron Curtain, come on.
Yeah.
They're like, you guys are imprisoned over there. Haha, we're free.
Who knows? Like, who's to say who is behind and who is in front of the Iron Curtain?
That's true. It's just, if it's just an iron wall, how do we know who's behind and who's in front? And according to Ralph A. Utaro, RFE's broadcasts consisted largely of inflammatory anti-communist propaganda. So, Utaro was the lawyer we were referencing from the previous episode. So, RFE's parent organization counted among its founding members Alan Dulles, former director of the CIA.
A drunk who, under the Truman administration, they were and the Truman, a famously racist, bad type administration, but even they were like, this guy seems like a lot. We're not doing this. So he had to wait till Eisenhower to get appointed.
And Dwight D. Eisenhower was, another founding member of RFE's parent organization. So Utaro writes, while VOA, Voice of America, essentially endeavors to tell the rest of the world about the United States, RFE attempts to tell the people of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union about themselves. So remember how I said every news organization has a different little personality?
Yeah.
So Voice of America is like, here's what's happening in the United States. RFE was like, here is what's happening secretly in Europe that they don't want you to know about.
It's funny, I was reading, there were some stories about, it was actually a West German group that it seems like funded by the CIA, that was like a right-wing paramilitary group that had a hit list of like social democrats in West Germany, like if like revolution would happen or like if they needed to, and the CIA was like, look, we didn't know anything about a hit list, we just gave them a bunch of money, like
not for the hit list thing. So internal CIA documents, one dated November 22nd, 1950, talking about Radio Free Europe, was talking about it and said it was essentially an instrument of psychological warfare. Radio Free Europe's purpose is to prevent, or at least to hinder, the cultural, political, and economic integration of the satellite states with the Soviet Union. So this is the goal. Outright, the CIA is admitting, they're like, our goal is to make satellite countries hate the Soviet Union.
So it's like anyone who's like non-aligned at this point, or also like...
Well, they refer to satellite states as being non-Russia members of the USSR.
Oh,
basically.
okay. So it's people in the Soviet bloc.
Yes. So this document goes on to explain some of the goals of Radio Free Europe, including stimulating and increasing the difficulties of the satellite regimes in their efforts to achieve full control of production and economic integration with the USSR. So whenever you hear people be like, oh, communism never works, it's like, well, yeah, that's because our CIA pumped millions and millions of dollars into trying to make sure it didn't work through things like this.
It should, one objection could be like, well, but like the KGB did the same thing to, no, the KGB didn't have that much power.
No, the KGB did not have that much power, no. And also, despite all of this, it's worth noting, again, when socialism is implemented places, life expectancy and literacy rates go up, which to me are always two pretty good indicators of what's going on. It doesn't mean life's going to be perfect, but you're like, well, these things are positive. Also, one of the goals was, quote, creating doubts and fear among the quislings of the satellites by character assassination and talk of ultimate retribution, and at the same time drawing a distinction between communist puppets and those who follow the party line in order to survive, thereby encouraging high-level defections among the latter. I think this one's really interesting.
Wait, okay, what's a quisling?
Quisling.
A traitor, collaborator, it's a traitor or collaborator.
So basically they're saying, look, you might be a communist, but maybe you don't actually believe it, and you're just doing it because you have to survive, and that's totally okay. Nobody would judge you for that.
So it's basically like, oh, you kind of seem like a stooge. We're going to take the stooginess...
And we're going to be like, it's
inherent
okay.
in you.
It's all
We're going
right.
to let you just, like, live your full stoogey life.
Yeah. And another one of the goals that was outlined in the CIA document says, developing an atmosphere favorable to the growth or resistance movements for ultimate exploitation in war or at a propitious moment?
Propitious?
Propitious, like it's like...
Yeah, no, they kept doing a thing where they kept trying to parachute people into Albania, and for some reason, a man named Kim Philby, see our Patreon, those people just kept getting captured immediately because and like they kept trying to like broadcast in, but like nobody believed the broadcasts. Okay,
so at a propitious moment, I haven't heard that word before.
That I feel like that's an SAT word.
Oh, okay. In peacetime. So here, literally the United States is talking about undermining the government of another country. Famously, there's no two ways about this. Like, this is literally the United States being like, yeah, we're going to undermine and destroy that country's government.
But they're doing it. I mean, right, like, they're, like, essentially, like, there's nothing that bad. Like, they're not killing anyone. They're just, like...
Well, that's just the news source.
No, I know.
They're
but, like,
people,
right,
too.
like, they're killing people. But, like, right at this moment, like, what they're saying...
Radio Free Europe, the broadcasting is...
They can be like, look, our hands are clean.
They didn't find a way to have Radio Free Europe, like the frequencies explode people's brains in their heads or anything. But I bet they probably tried.
Havana syndrome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, they would have gone for that, I think, if they could have.
No, I mean, they had, like, the against like every leader from, I'm gonna mispronounce his name,
Mossadegh, yeah.
To like famously Castro. Like the plots to kill every leader of any other country are, let's call it silent movie madcap.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. The Castro ones, we have a whole episode that touches on a lot of the plots to kill Fidel Castro. It's pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, the thing about these propaganda wings, which we mentioned in the last episode, is that propaganda is really cheap to administer. Mm-hmm. It's not very messy, because you're not out there actually exploding people's brains. You're just metaphorically exploding their brains. And it's really cost effective.
Yeah.
It does the job. So what we see is that this stuff, Radio Free Europe, for example, worked so well that's why so many historians are like, Radio Free Europe probably brought about the fall of the Soviet Union, honestly. So by this point in time, 1950, November 22nd, 1950, programs were already going out for 7.5 hours a day in 5 different languages in Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, and Romania, and had been for roughly 5 months. And it was so effective that in 1951, the budget for RFE was already being increased. So that's Radio Free Europe. But remember, there's also Radio Liberty.
And okay, so that they are operating like on the same playing field, like in the same area.
Yeah, same playing field as VOA, kind of CIA, State Department overseeing it, but they're considered different at this time. Now, eventually, Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe will merge, but we're not there yet in the timeline. So Radio Liberty was a companion to RFE, and they started broadcasting to the Soviet Union in 1953 with similar goals and techniques. So those satellite states that they're referencing, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Albania, Romania, Bulgaria, those were the ones that weren't part of the USSR, right? Okay. Because I don't think Czechoslovakia and Poland were ever part of the USSR.
Czechoslovakia was its like own thing.
Yeah,
right?
They were their own things. Yeah. So Radio Liberty was the one that was going to the Soviet Union. Exactly. So I was incorrect when I said that the satellite states would include places that were part of the USSR but not Russia. That would be incorrect. It would only be the places that were considered by the West to be under the sphere of Soviet influence.
And they somewhat famously had a series of like bloodless color revolution nationalist things happen in the late 80s.
Yeah, that definitely had nothing to do with the CIA or Ned. Wink, wink. Yeah. So Radio Liberty was the one that started targeting the Soviet Union in general. And they started in 1953, but had, similar goals and techniques. So Radio Liberty, like Radio Free Europe, was considered gray broadcasting. So that would be different than the VOA, Voice of America, which was really above board at the time. So remember, these were still part of the CIA. They were undercover. And like we talked about, a lot of these things started kind of undercover under the CIA, and then once they get successful, Congress is like, okay, we're going to save you from your bad association with espionage and try to make you look super legit and cleaned up and tidy, just like VOA. You know what it is? It's My Fair Lady.
Oh, okay. It is.
That's the metaphor.
It's Pygmalion.
Pygmalion?
It's
that
the
My
same
Fair Lady?
thing. It's all the same thing.
Okay, it's My Fair Lady. So Congress plucks My Fair Lady, Radio Liberty, Radio
She's got
Free
a
Europe,
Cockney
whatever.
accent.
Yeah, and they're like, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plains. Say it right. And then you get to be above board, fancy.
So it's like,
respectable.
I am not, nor have I ever received funding from the CIA. Say it right.
I have not, nor will I ever. Yeah, exactly. So, we've got some notes about what was going on with Radio Liberty from CIA documents as well. So, as the CIA explained, they called this gray broadcasting to the USSR. Gray broadcasting is an unacknowledged instrument of the U.S. government. Its sole reason for existence is to further U.S. policy. Unacknowledged. So they're like, shh, this is secret. We can't tell anybody we're doing this. AIMS, sorry. This is like a really old photocopied typewriter document from the CIA website.
The CIA loves to do that.
Yeah, some of them are like downright illegible. So I have to like sift through the ones I can actually make out. So its aims are those of American foreign information policy in general, which includes specific formulations of policy for both the official radio and the gray station. So then there's a section that says the relationship between gray and official stations. Like, so VOA would be an official station. These would be the gray stations, right? In furthering these aims, gray broadcasting has distinctive characteristics which differentiate it from acknowledged official broadcasting, such as VOA. This is mainly because the U.S. government is not formally accountable for the content of gray broadcasts, though its actual responsibility may be inferred. So they're like, basically we can get away with more because people don't know that it's the United States.
Are they also using like stay behind groups and stuff like that to broadcast?
Well, yeah, they have to, because remember, shortwave.
Yeah,
for a long time it's shortwave.
It's like, right, often, because like the stay behind groups, like the right-wing type, like paramilitary groups in West Germany, often it was like the CIA could just be like, look, we didn't tell them to like come up with a hit list. We just funded a right-wing paramilitary group and let them do what they wanted to.
Right, and this is what they wanted. We weren't involved. Yeah, plausible deniability. So the document goes on to say, a rational allocation of roles between official and gray broadcasting permits each to concentrate on aspects for which it is best fitted, in order that taken together, their operations efficiently cover all the aims of U.S. broadcasting to the Soviet Union. Again, sorry, it's hard to read the documents. I also, of course, like always, will have links to these documents where you can see them yourself in our sources. If you just scroll down in the descriptions, the links will be there.
So you can also struggle
to be like U.S. I should have known that from context clues. A certain amount of overlapping is inevitable, but the basic principle applies that each carries responsibility for certain tasks which have been mutually agreed upon. So they're really saying, look, VOA is going to be different than Radio Liberty or Radio Free Europe. We want it that way, but they're both working together to paint a picture to establish this kind of goal. This
you are oppressed, we are free. Come be free like us.
And we're going to tell you in many different ways through different voices with different names. So, as Utaro explained, Radio Liberty programming concentrates on the internal affairs of the Soviet Union and its East European satellites in an attempt to spur internal reform. So that was the goal there. So Voice of America is just like, this is what's going on in the United States. And Radio Liberty, Radio Free Europe are like, yeah, actually everyone hates the USSR. So if you were like even like a little mad at your government or at communism, that's actually really, really common. And it turns out everybody is actually super mad. And maybe it's more fucked up than you thought it was. And maybe you would be like so much happier if you overthrew your government and instead you did Western capitalism like we're doing.
Though Voice of America, when they're doing like America's so great, look how awesome America is, they're like specifically like, what civil rights movement?
Yeah.
What student protest movement? What
no,
anti-Vietnam War protests?
No.
What is that?
They don't talk about those things. They're not allowed.
Everyone in America is free and equal, and we love the war in Vietnam.
Exactly. So, all of this internal reform that Utaro was talking about, that Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe were very openly trying to encourage, it was literally just anti-communism. They were just like, overthrow your communist countries and just open it up there for Western business so we can come do capitalism there too, please. So again, we're compromising the sovereignty of other nations with our CIA efforts, yes. A declassified CIA document from March 28th, 1952 is shown to plan the types of content that these broadcasts coming from Radio Liberty and their major objectives like all would have. So I have this one's really hard to read, so I'm going to do my best. You're looking at the screenshot, right?
Here, let's see it.
It's pretty hard to read.
Oh.
So this is the CIA document from March 28th, 1952. And again, it is talking about Radio Liberty's broadcasting goals. So the contents are going to be the destruction of the myth of the inevitable victory of communism. Every effort should be made to convince Soviet citizens of the moral and material superiority of the free world, capitalized, capitalism basically, over the communist system, of the inevitability of the free world, capitalized, and the inevitability of its victory over communist imperialism. News items should be selected to impress Soviet listeners with the great strength of the free world, its material resources, scientific achievements, economic progress, etc., with the steps taken by the Western democracies to build up their economic and military strength, etc. Propaganda along this line is of great importance in view of the tremendous and unremitting efforts of the Kremlin to inculcate the idea of the superiority of the communist system and the inevitability of its extension over the whole world. There is no question but that the morale of opposition elements would be greatly strengthened by the destruction of the myth of the inevitability of the victory of communism. So basically what they're saying is like, look, everybody thinks that communism is the future and it's going to take over and it's doing so much better than capitalism. We need to structure all of our broadcasting content to make people think the opposite. And for context, remember, the USSR winning the space race. Also, literacy rates higher than the United States at a certain point. Life expectancy was higher than the United States. You know, the USSR looked like the future. It looked like progress. And obviously, if you've read Marx, you know, Marx talks about the inevitability.
And, like, Marx talks about it as, like, that in terms of, like, the contradictions of capitalism are going to become so apparent that they are, like, unsustainable within capitalism. Like, capitalism will produce its own executioner.
Right. They will sell us the rope we use to hang them.
And I think, right, there's a difference between that and, like, Marxism and, like, we do revolution now.
Right.
Right, like that which, like, sometimes young Marxists have a hard time with.
Yeah, but I think the most interesting thing in this is, that they were like, we need something to counter this Marxist idea that communism is the inevitable future that comes after capitalism. We need to tell them capitalism is the inevitable victor here, and capitalism equals freedom. That's the big thing we always do. Whenever you hear the United States government say freedom, you need to think about freedom for markets, market freedom, a free market, and also you need to talk about or think about freedom for businesses to exploit things. That's what we mean when we say freedom. So when we say the free world, what they really mean is the free world of American business, right?
Yeah.
So what the CIA is saying, we need to make them think that inevitably these big businesses, the free world of big business, will win and they can't hold out for long.
And, you know, to their credit, they did.
They did. They were right.
Yeah.
So a document just a few months after this, remember this one came out March 28th, this next one is on July 3rd, and it says that the goals of Radio Liberty were to increase the rate of defection from Soviet occupation forces by exploiting weak spots in the Soviet armor, to deter Soviet aggression, to stimulate internal disaffection, which can be turned to United States advantage in case of war, and to modify the Soviet attitude towards the non-communist world in the direction of greater cooperation. The aims of the anti-communist Russian immigration, whose members will be staffing the station and under American supervision will be responsible for the programming, are simpler and more specific. To overthrow the Soviet regime, to establish a new regime in which the immigration can participate.
Okay, can we go back to the greater cooperation line?
Yes, so I think all of this is wild.
Well, no, because, like, because it's, like, historically, the Soviet Union has been like, yeah, fine, let's do it.
That's actually true. The Soviet Union tried to cooperate with the United States a lot on everything except for the free market business exploitation stuff.
Like, they were like...
Foreign policy-wise, the Soviet Union were the ones coming to the United States. Like, we should probably do something about Hitler.
We should probably do something about nuclear arms.
Right.
Like, this is...
But
over and over, it's the Soviet Union's going like, hey, man, we're just trying to get along.
And the United States is like, absolutely fucking not. Let us exploit your resources.
But then every now and again, they'll be like, we really tried. Yeah. We really tried to be friends with them.
But we didn't. We never did try to be friends with them. And as you can see, the goal of Radio Liberty is to basically overthrow the USSR, to overthrow the Soviet regime. They say that, point blank. Now, what's interesting here is they talk about how, in particular, they are targeting people from Russia who don't like communism. They're like, come with us. Get over here. Come to the United States and work with us. So the majority of the programming, remember how we said Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, the goal was to teach them about themselves? Mm-hmm. The way that the United States wants to do this is by taking people who were unhappy with communism, which, again, I always say, most people who lived under communism in the USSR are, like, disappointed that in its downfall. Like, most people who are old enough to live under it, they regret the fall or the dissolution of communism. They think life was better under communism, but that's not everybody.
And it's also, right, like, communism, it doesn't, like, destroy human unhappiness. Like,
right. It's not this utopian thing that's going to fix all your problems in the world. So some people were not happy, very obviously, and those people left, which makes sense. So that's why when you talk to people in the United States, they're like, well, my family lived in a communist country and they hated it. It's like, well, that makes sense. That's why they left.
They live here now.
They live here
now.
How
are
for
they
a
feeling
reason.
with that?
Right. They left because they weren't happy with it. They came here. So the United States was like, let's really focus on that. Let's grab these people who were unhappy and left. Let's put their voices on the radio and have them talk to people back in the country they just left and make it sound like, yeah, everyone hates it, actually. It's miserable. It's awful. You should leave. I left. And that's really their strategy here.
So, you know, because socialism, because obviously communism, not this is socialism.
It's
right.
socialism, the intermediary phase between capitalism and communism.
But, right, like, it's not going to, like, solve every damn problem in your life. Like, you're walking around being normally humanly unhappy.
Yeah.
And you hear someone being like, it's actually not your fault.
It's communism's fault.
It's communism's fault. Communism made you, like, stub your toe and, like, miss the train for work.
And made your wife hate you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can be like, yes. Which actually, this ties in with this thing that was, I know you didn't see it because you're not on Twitter. Mm-hmm. This thing has been passed around on Twitter where this guy was literally like, so my wife's a liberal and I hate her for being a stupid liberal, and I never told her that I wasn't a stupid liberal. I just let her talk. And then today I finally did it, and I left my stupid liberal wife, and she's really sad about it, but I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna own those libs by leaving my wife. And then it's like this whole chain of him being like deeply unhappy afterwards and unfulfilled. It is so bizarre.
Why would you marry? Okay.
Because I think that this man got sucked into like the new right, and somebody convinced him every problem he had in life was because of liberals.
Oh, he married her and then became a right wing.
I think this is what actually happened. And then he was like, it's my stupid liberal wife's fault or something. But it's kind of like that. It's like you can tell somebody a scapegoat for all their problems. And if you're like the manosphere, you're like, yeah, your problem's women. Or if you're like alt-right, you're like, your problem's liberals, you know?
I was just assuming that he was like a Bernie bro who was like, I fucking hate the libs. I'm like a hard left Twitter Stalinist.
No.
You're following hard right guys. You're following.
No, I followed everybody making fun of him.
Oh, okay.
I follow people who are like that like meme that's like, my wife left me.
Can you imagine being that poor woman and just like waking up one day and being like, why is my husband saying this weird shit about liberal? Like,
oh my god.
I mean, and it's not even in like a funny Twitter Stalinist way. No. It's just in a.
I want to be further right than that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm so much further right than that. I mean, it's pretty jarring. It's pretty sad. But yeah, that's been going on. So I feel like this is the same thing. The United States is like, we're going to tell everybody that all other problems come from communism, and we're going to use a guy who just left that country to be the voice, the mouthpiece of it, to talk about it. And I will say, I do see people do this even with scapegoating capitalism for all their problems. Like, I think capitalism is responsible for 99.8% of the problems in the world, but there is like 0.2% that sometimes you'll see a friend complaining about something and they'll be like, and it's capitalism's fault, and you in the back of your head have to be like, actually, I usually say yes, it's capitalism's fault, but I think this one might be you. But you can't say that. No.
Have I done this?
No.
Okay, I'm just like, I've told you the thing that you do.
What?
The weird, indirect advice. Madeline hates giving advice.
I don't think you should give unsolicited advice.
But she loves giving advice.
I
it's
have
her
a lot
favorite
of opinions
thing.
about how the world should work.
And so when the impulse is too strong, you go, you did this in high school. I had bad acne. You know what I found really works well for acne?
I had bad acne too in high school. We were in high school.
Yeah, but
we all had bad acne.
We were working on an essay.
Well,
and you just turned to me out of nowhere, and I was like, I know what I'm not dumb, Madeline.
Okay, well, I don't
Is this your way of saying that I've been blaming my problems on capitalism, is what I'm saying?
No, what I'm talking about more is like when you have a friend who's like, yeah, I don't want to ever work a job. And you're like, yeah, I hear that. Working a job under capitalism sucks. Your labor's exploited. You're not paid enough to live. And it's really stressful and miserable. And they're like, no, like, I actually just think I should be treated like a princess or a king upon high and have servants and everyone takes care of me. And I think that I'm special. And then you're like, what? And then you have to be like, for sure, man, we all deserve that. You have to contribute a little. And then you realize, like, for that person, their problem's not capitalism. Their problem's them.
I mean, you gotta do something.
You gotta help. You gotta do a little of the work. Hating capitalism doesn't mean I don't want to work at all. It means I want to work for good things under better conditions and have my quality of life improve as a result.
Yeah, I mean, a good way of thinking about communism is like it is a working person's movement.
It is a worker movement.
It is a worker movement.
Yeah.
It's not...
So, like, it would be like that. It would be like if you were like, yeah, I'm going to bring down capitalism by getting my one friend who thinks they should be a billionaire king without a job to talk to other people and be like, capitalism is your problem. If it wasn't for capitalism, we could all be billionaire kings. It's like
not understanding that that's not how billionaire kings work.
No, that's not. But that's kind of what the technique of like Radio Liberty kind of was. They were like, we're gonna find the guys who left because they didn't like the communism. Yeah. And then we're gonna have them talk to other people about all the reasons they left and hated it.
I mean, like they do this today with DPRK with what's her... I can't remember.
Yeonmi Park.
I can never remember her damn name.
Yeonmi Park, yeah.
I remember her face.
Yeah, I do like that she's become a meme.
I remember
her face. I don't remember anybody's face, and I remember her face. She's got a unique face.
She's got a face.
Yeah. So, the important things to take away from this, mostly that they are calling it propaganda outright. They know it's propaganda, they know what they're doing, and that they are saying, yes, we are using it to try to overthrow the USSR.
I honestly really like their forthrightness and self-reflexivity there. I think that's growth.
Yeah, they're really honest. They'll tell you.
Yeah.
They'll tell you what they're up to. So both RFE and RL, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, were at the time being publicly presented as though organized by businessmen. And in reality, there were some businessmen assisting and intelligence personnel in this endeavor. Because under capitalism, business and government are basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. But they tried to make it like, I was a victim of communism because I was a humble businessman exploiting my laborers and the communism took away my slave factory. So then I fled. Now I came to the United States where they love slave factory owners and I'm so free. And if you're listening to this and you feel like if it weren't for communism, you could be a slave factory owner too, I'm here to tell you, you could just come to the United States and denounce communism. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the goal. So it was like a lot of business dudes, but then also obviously the United States government was involved also.
I have a question, and I'm sure you're going to talk about, like, it feels like nationalism has, like, that seems like an obvious thing that happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because it's like, if you're, like, fucking Estonian or some shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could just really go hard on Estonian shit.
Well, and we're gonna get into this in a second, but the places that... Oh, I don't want to, like, spoil it yet, but basically, the places that now say that they were less satisfied with communism are the places that were hit the hardest by Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. So it's worth trying to figure out, and I'm sure if you took like months to just look through CIA documents, you could find this. If the CIA saw that these were the places most likely to be unhappy with it because of cultural backgrounds or structural backgrounds, and we're like, that's where we're going to hit, or if Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty were so instrumental that it permanently altered the way people from those countries think about communism.
Yeah, I like the example that always comes to mind is like the singing revolution or whatever in Estonia.
Yeah.
I think where like the only thing I think about the boulders in Estonia like all the damn time.
I actually know a lot of people from Estonia.
I've met a few people I asked every time I meet someone from Estonia. Also, I've learned recently that the like weird little Baltic infighting stereotype about Estonians is that they're very slow. Like dumb.
Oh, well, all the Estonians I know are not. They are well dressed and cool and smart.
No, I've only met cool Estonians, so
yeah,
I think this
so
is
cool.
like, but like if you meet someone from like Lithuania or Latvia or something.
Oh, it's like the same way we in the United States talk about people from the South or something, where you're like, it's not true, but it's like the stereotype.
Yeah, like even the people from Lithuania or Latvia will be like, yeah, I mean, we know it's.
Yeah.
We're just like fucking with them.
That's pretty interesting. So. We have the radios now, RFE and RL, being overseen actually at this time by private U.S. corporations. So one is overseen by the National Committee for Free Europe, and the other is overseen by the American Committee for Freedom of the Peoples of the USSR, which would be later renamed to the Radio Liberty Committee.
I mean, okay, I gotta say, how are you gonna be Mr. Free Private Enterprise and then be like, but also we are the CIA?
Yeah,
they gotta make it a private.
The CIA also created corporations all the time. Like
yeah.
Air America, for example. They were creating corporations left and right.
Air America's. We should
do an episode all about Air America.
Air America's wild.
We've talked about it because it interacts with so much stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've ever just done one on Air America.
If you'd like to know how the CIA like transported opium around Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
They've made their own airline.
Yeah, and more than one. That was just one of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
So, for 2 decades, RFE and RL managed to convince the world their funding was totally private. Not the U.S. government, just private business guys who wish that they could, do business everywhere, but the stupid communists won't let us do business there. So, Otaro says, periodic rumors about CIA involvement in the station's operations were quickly dismissed. Then, in 1971, the floodgates opened to reveal a wealth of evidence that the stations had indeed been covertly financed by the CIA. It became apparent that over the course of 20 years, these quote-unquote private stations had received about $500 million in U.S. government funds.
Damn.
I know. Both were, of course, conceived by the State Department and from their beginning received substantial funding, from the CIA, covertly to conceal that it was, in fact, a CIA propaganda outlet and to try to, present it instead as independent journalism. So the goal of RFE and RL was always to overthrow communism, which was also the main goal of the CIA from its inception, so this should be surprising to no one. Originally, they did try to push a color revolution agenda, encouraging people to rise up and protest communism in favor of capitalism where they lived. Eventually, though, when this failed, they changed their technique to encourage the gradual liberalization of the communist systems of Central and Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. Meaning, what if you just gave a little bit of markets to open things up for private businesses to swoop in?
What if you just, were, a little bit more friendly to the UN and NATO and, the West?
What if you just undid some of the land reform?
Just privatize.
Just privatize a little bit.
They are the free sample drug dealer.
They are,
yeah.
And I think about Khrushchev.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to.
Yeah. So by all accounts, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty were, highly instrumental in the fall of communism in Europe. Cord Meyer of the CIA once said, by broadcasting shortwave programs in foreign languages prepared by highly competent exiles, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty played a critical role that eventually broke the communist grip on both Eastern Europe and Russia. So CIA guys are we did that. During the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, for example, RFE broadcasted notices that the United States was soon coming to assist in the revolutionary anti-communist efforts, telling people, rise up against your communist governments because the U.S. government's going to be there soon to help you. In fact, this was not true. And it violated Eisenhower's stated policy that the United States would not be getting involved.
I mean, the CIA kind of, their relationship to, American power is very much yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we hear you. We're doing a thing. Don't get in our way.
Just we have our own money.
Get out of the way. We're doing a thing.
We've been funding some banks, so we don't have to worry about that.
The
you don't
CIA
have to pay us for it.
Have its own banks. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it is really interesting. And sometimes people are well, how can you trust CIA to classify documents? Why do they declassify the documents? And you're well, because actually other government agencies didn't even know what the CIA was up to. Other government agencies sometimes would be we gotta see what you've been doing. You can't just do all this.
Yeah, I mean, they would, not to sound conspiratorial, they created basically their own separate system that was where they could act relatively independently of the U.S. government.
Exactly. I met this guy at, I met this guy a couple days ago. I don't know. He was really interesting. But he was oh yeah, basically, the president, that's just a temp.
Yeah.
The actual government is, the State Department, the CIA, all of these kind of agencies that nobody's ever elected into these positions.
And they were deep.
The deep state is running everything! He was a normal man. He was a normal human man who did not think the deep state was controlling everything. Although I will say, speaking of the deep state, there is a cartoon on Netflix called Deep State that I do find very funny.
Is it about the CIA?
Yeah, kinda.
Oh,
it's about
cute.
the quote-unquote deep state. It's funny. So if you guys like cartoons, I think it's a fun little watch. Okay, anyway, so RFE was charged with having deliberately incited and provoked the Hungarian uprising by using information, though, from that broadcast.
And this is the revolution that, this is where the term tanky comes from, right?
Is this the one?
Yeah, this is the Hungarian, because
it is the
Khrushchev.
Oh, yes. Okay. We used to use it to describe something else, pre-Stalin, that Stalin did, but under Lenin. But most people I've come to learn do use it to describe Khrushchev in this Hungarian revolution.
Well,
yes.
no, this is right, if I understand correctly, that sending the tanks into Hungary was, like, the origin of the term.
Yes.
Tanky. And it's like, look, I mean, Stalin sent tanks a lot of places. Some places he maybe shouldn't have.
Yeah.
He didn't send them into Hungary in 1956.
No,
At least not in 1956.
No, see, the thing that I was thinking of was when Stalin was under Lenin and he was like a security director and he was in charge of an operation in Hungary before this, and he did authorize tanks to issue, and there was a situation or to enter, and Lenin was like, that maybe was a little overboard, and that's where I had always thought the term tanky had come from.
Oh, I've always heard it's from the
Khrushchev. Well, so once I told people that's where I always heard tanky came from, everyone else was like, no, it's the Khrushchev thing. So I do think this
But it's
is
funny
what
because it's
people
like,
talk about.
right, if you're a Twitter Stalinist, you're a tanky.
Right.
Supposedly.
Anyone who opposes the U.S. narrative about our political enemies now is called a tanky.
Well, I mean, I have met enough annoying Twitter Stalinists, and obviously not on Twitter because that's not where I am.
Well, you're meeting. Okay.
I get around.
Yeah.
They're not fun to talk to.
Well, I think the thing is when you hear people have such a flat and unnuanced viewpoint on the history of American intervention in other countries around the planet, you end up getting pushed back into a corner where you're like, why is everybody holding every country who tried to do a thing to such a high standard compared to how they would hold these capitalist countries?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why people get so, you know what, fuck it, I'm all in on Stalin, fuck you.
Oh, no, I mean, it's like, right, they take the most extreme position because I was telling my parents about this the other day because I don't know why I was talking about this, but I was like, capitalism feels so evil, right? And at a certain point, you kind of want to, like, put a middle finger up and just be like, fuck you, I am going to take the Stalinist position. Like, the, like, hardest...
Well, and also you're like, is this really the best use of our time critiquing Stalin right now?
No, I mean, that's...
Is this really where our political efforts... So I get that, because I'm like, you know what? I don't agree with everything Stalin did, but anybody who's like, no, I think the most important thing we could do right now is deeply critique Stalin. I'm like, read the fucking room. Stalin's dead.
I mean, I think, right, there's also, as I've told you the story about convincing my cousin that we were doing Revolution tomorrow.
Yes,
yeah.
I love that story.
When I was 14 and I had read the Communist Manifesto, for the first time, I was like, I went on family vacation with my cousin and I was like, we're doing Revolution tomorrow, it's happening, and I was, because I was 14.
Yeah.
I think Stalinists are, like, at least on the internet, doing a little bit of... This is a little cosplay.
Do you think... I mean...
It's a little cosplay.
I think maybe some, but I think some are just people who are so fucking frustrated with everyone missing the point. You know? And I get that. And it's like, the same thing with, like, me talking about North Korea, the DPRK. Like, I don't agree with... Like, I'm a prison abolitionist. I don't love prisons being anywhere. But if you're going to critique prisons in the DPRK while sitting in the United States, I'm going to tell you,
crazy.
You've missed the fucking plot, man. You've lost the plot. What are you doing? Like, just leave them the fuck alone. And I think that's kind of the same position people take about Stalin, where it's like, you've lost the fucking plot. Russia was a czarist peasant economy where everybody was a serf. Nobody was free. They doubled life expectancy. Like... Yeah, you can look at every political leader in every country and be like, there were things that happened that I do not agree with that were not ideal. But to critique it fucking however many years later, when you're like, okay, cool, I live in the United States, 1 million people die here from poverty-related issues every single year.
No, I mean, I have met enough annoying edgelord internet communists in real life, which is always, like, a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Where they're like, bragging about tweets.
Oh.
This is always something that, like, I find real, like, I'm just like, we're at a party, you're telling me about a tweet you did?
Was it about microplastics in the balls?
No, it was about, it was like they owned some, like, lib. I
mean, I actually enjoy that, but that's because I'm communist Ben Shapiro.
This is,
I'm trying to cut back.
I have you have an addiction. It's a problem.
I've been doing really well. I've been letting things go lately, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, like, to me, it is way more interesting to talk about the CIA's attempts to destabilize the USSR than to talk about any of the wrongs of the USSR. Because every country has wrongs that they've done. Every leader has things where you're like, I don't like that one. But it just feels really counterproductive. Like, I feel like I meet a lot of people who are like, I'm a communist. And then any single country that's ever been like, we're trying to do socialism, they're like, no, I hate it, haha. And it's like, are you only a communist in theory? Why can't you back any revolutionary efforts that have actually taken place somewhere tangible?
Yeah, I mean,
and that's what upsets me, where I'm just like, what's the point of this?
When people get all verklempt over Cuba shit, and it's like, there are, like, a few things that, like, people can point to in Cuba where it's like, no, that's, like, bad.
Yeah, like, North Korea, like, they did kidnap a chick once to make her come to North Korea to try to teach them Japanese. That's real. That's not
That
a
is
deal.
Also very funny.
I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's like, I don't love that lady got kidnapped.
Yeah.
But also the United States committed genocide there, so maybe we focus on that one first. That's kind of my thing. It's like, how about we order of operations this shit?
Okay, so, you know, like, so 1956 is happening. Hungary's like, we would like a kind of, like, they're doing, like, student movement liberalization style.
Inspired heavily by Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty.
We're gonna be communist, but not like you, Dad.
Yes.
Like, that's what Hungary's doing, and not, and they're like, we're gonna be, like, and, like, Czechoslovakia, some of the best fucking movies come out of Czechoslovakia doing this a decade later. Daisies. Right? Mm-hmm. But, like, we're gonna be, like, liberal communists. We're gonna be, like, EU type the EU didn't exist, but that's the vibe.
We're gonna be social democrats.
But, like, yeah.
But more. Yeah, okay, I can see this. And
Radio Free or Radio Free Europe is like, yeah, do it.
Yeah, stoke the flames. So, Radio Free Europe spreads misinformation, is like, the Americans are going to be there so soon to back you up if you do revolution. You should probably do revolution. Start the revolution and we'll come. Haha, sounds like a fun party. Didn't happen. So Cord Meyer, then chief of the International Organizations Division of the CIA, maintained they had nothing to do with this, though. They're like, we didn't tell them to do a revolution and we'd be there to back them up. We were actually so surprised when the fighting broke out. Oh my God.
It's actually, you know, one of the comical things about Hungary 1956 is, like, if you were, because this was, like, an international, and, like, it was, like, news, right? If you were, like, a communist intellectual in, like, Western Europe or whatever, this was the inflection point where you probably turned in your Communist Party membership. Like, Eric Hobsbawm, I think he was like, I'm still a communist, but, like, you shouldn't be. And he has a weird position.
Interesting.
But, like, all of, like Perry Anderson, all the Anderson brothers, all the, like, you know, British communist types were like, we gotta leave the Communist Party. This shit's fucked up.
Okay, so this all, though, happened because of the CIA.
Yeah.
So Cord Meyer said, from my own exposure to these events and from the findings of the working group within the agency that reviewed and taped the taped RFE broadcasts, I am satisfied that RFE did not plan, direct, or attempt to provoke the Hungarian rebellion. 2 independent and objective reviews kind of confirmed it. The independent and objective reviews being Radio Free Europe itself and the CIA that created it. So this is like that famous, we've investigated ourselves and found ourselves innocent of wrongdoings thing.
I mean, like, the thing is, right, I have to imagine if you are a CIA guy, which, hi, but, like, it is worthwhile having an accurate picture. Like, if you're trying to do espionage, lying to yourself, you're trying to lie to other people.
I think internally they knew. This is what Cord Meyer said to the outside.
I think, right, like,
this was not an internal document.
My suspicion is that they were, like, because it's like, they were funding a bunch of weird groups and, like, radio things, and they're like, we didn't, like, literally give anyone guns.
Right.
Like, they were letter of the lawing it.
Yeah, they were plausible deniability, too. So, We know from Meyer himself that the CIA, though, was actively involved in the content being produced at Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. He once stated the CIA maintained control over content by formulating general policy guidelines, which were supplemented by daily meetings to determine the handling of specific news items. Mm-hmm. So if the CIA is meeting with your quote-unquote journalists every single day to tell them what to say and how to say it, the odds that RFE just accidentally did this,
but I think the other thing, it's like an epistemological thing, because it's like, look, what's the relationship between the incredibly effective propaganda that we put out and this weird revolution thing? There's no relation. That's the organic desire for freedom.
This is like something with the Clinton thing, when Clinton was on trial for perjury for the Monica Lewinsky thing.
Are you talking about the definition of sex?
It was like the definition of the word like be or like had or like did. It was some preposition.
It was.
Like,
I think it was is.
What
is sex?
Yeah.
It was because he got a blowjob.
Right. And that was definitely sexual assault.
Yeah.
That was 100%.
Monica Lewinsky has, in the intervening years, had like it seems like a rocky but ascending path. She seems to
redemption arc.
She seems to be thriving.
Good for her.
The last time I looked at Bill Clinton's face, he doesn't. He's ghoulish.
Monica Lewinsky's winning there. She's really winning. So, internal CIA documents also clearly indicate that RFE was instructed to take a very active role in reporting in regards to Hungary, and even encourage listeners to sabotage food supplies.
Okay, so that's they're like next to giving people guns.
Yeah, they're like, kill them in a different way. Ha ha. No, do the revolution. Ha ha. No, mess up their food. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Do it.
The revolution is happening tomorrow. Just there.
Show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting VOA and Radio Free Europe broadcasts were extensively revised by the State Department with corrections and guidance issued into the minutia to advance, just this one common militarized goal in U.S. foreign policy. The State Department's like, we got to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So Radio Free Europe, for example, meeting with the CIA daily, and then the State Department is reviewing everything they're doing to be like, yes, this checks out, or like, no, not this. So all of this is like one big outlet, basically, of the U.S. military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though the U.S. military, somewhat famously, they're not in Hungary.
They're not in Hungary.
They don't go to Hungary.
This is the whole thing, though. It's like, how do we do war without sending our guys there with guns?
But I think, right, it also kind of serves the purpose of the U.S. interests for the Hungarian Revolution to fail in the way that it did.
Yeah.
Because it kind of looks like the Soviet Union looks like shit because they just trampled a bunch of freedom fighters.
Yeah, freedom fighters, right, exactly. So on their end, the communists in Europe, they knew exactly what RFE and RL were up to. The United States was not fooling them. Like in 1959, there was a failed attempt by the Czechoslovak intelligence service to poison the salt shakers in the Radio Free Europe cafeteria. Because they were like, you fucking spy scum.
This is the KGB, all the KGB stuff is so, they are also doing spy versus spy cute shit, where they're like...
Yeah. They're definitely trying to
poisoning salt shakers.
I will say one side was more offensive and the other side was more defensive.
Yeah, but it's very... I guess it's the same, comedy of errors style.
I know, yeah. The salt shaker is pretty funny.
Okay.
So also in Czechoslovakia, an RFE reporter who was also confirmed to be a CIA agent too, named Stefan Kirapolsky, was imprisoned for orchestrating the murder of a border guard in Hungary. So this guy, CIA agent, who's also an RFE reporter, kills a border guard in Hungary, doesn't kill directly, orchestrates the murder of. And in Czechoslovakia, they're like, we know exactly who you are and what you're doing. You're not getting away with this. You're going to prison. From 1965 to 1971, an agent of Poland's Communist Security Service successfully infiltrated RFE, working in their media analysis service in Munich. So, they knew. They're like, we got to get in there and see what's going on there. This is definitely the CIA. And by 1967, word started to get out via the press that these seemingly independent media organizations, RFE and RL, were, just the CIA. So a one-time grant was approved to continue funding through June 1969 amidst this like media mess that came out in 1967. Congress was like, okay, we're doing a grant to keep these things going through June 1969, and then we have to figure out something new to do with them because people are really mad that this is the CIA. And in 1969, an internal memorandum discussing how to proceed, it's pretty noticeable because it showcases how valuable as an asset these programs were, saying, quote, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty have been the oldest, largest, most costly, and probably most successful covert action projects aimed at the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. So no ifs, ands, and buts. Everyone's like, we need these. These are the things that are working the best to defeat communism. So the radio programs were referred to in government documents as, quote, CIA orphans.
Oh.
Yeah, they're like, they can't be at home in the CIA anymore. We need to find a new home for them. So covert funding from the CIA continued through 1972 when the CIA's involvement in RFE and RL was fully exposed in Congress, and a Senate committee voted to then overtly continue funding the two agencies under a new initiative. So in October 1973, Congress created the Board for International Broadcasting, BIB, quote, in order to provide an effective instrumentality for the continuation of assistance to Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. In 1976, the two agencies officially merged, and that is why now they are often referred to as just RFE/RL. In 1981, RFE/RL's headquarters in Munich were actually bombed.
Who bombed them?
Well, both Romania and Russia were blamed.
I was assuming that it was like RAF, like Red Army faction people.
Well, a KGB colonel, Oleg Nekiporenko, was like, hey, maybe we bombed him, maybe we didn't. But either way, it's totally justified because RFE/RL is an American propaganda tool used against the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And he was right. Yeah. It's like you're trying to disband our government, dismantle our government, and overthrow our country. Like, I'm not saying we bombed you, but whoever bombed you had the right idea, is kind of what he said. Mm-hmm. So I feel like based on that, it was probably Russia, but some people think it was Romania. In 1989, RFE/RL, along with VOA, ran a report saying that a student named Martin Said had been killed by riot police in demonstrations in Prague. Now, this is major because this report turned out to be totally fake. This was not true, but it was an instrumental report in encouraging widespread rebellions against the communist government in Czechoslovakia. And that is what ultimately led to the fall of the communist government there.
Oh, really?
Yes, from this totally falsified report about a student being killed by riot police. It never happened. In 2005, former Director of Security for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty said at a conference, the radios were two critical and successful elements of the CIA's early Cold War clandestine or covert activities directed at communist regimes. So in 2003, RFE/RL launched something called Radio Farda, which was an Iranian branch of Radio Free Europe/Radio Liberty. So I just think that's really interesting because the places getting targeted with these things.
Wait, what was the year did you say?
This was 2003.
Okay, because I was like, 79 would have been like a pivotal year start to like form a radio station.
No, we did it in 2003. But it's like we're really forming these radio stations to target our political enemies in a significant and major way.
So right around the time we are like, hey, you know what we're going to do? We are going to destroy the entire balance of power in the Middle East.
Yeah, this is working on year 2.5 of the War on Terror.
It is the first year of the invasion of Iraq.
And this is just like, fuck it, they're all enemies. I remember this because I remember being like, is Afghanistan the bad guy or is Iraq the bad guy? And the government's just like, yes.
No,
I mean, like this. So it's all of the countries in the Middle East, and the U.S. government is like, yeah,
The Bush administration did try, and which Iraq and Iran like have been in wars against one another at like various points. Like they're not friends.
Yeah.
As country, but like they did try to tie the Saddam Hussein government funding Al-Qaeda and Taliban terrorists, and like there was like a real slippage between Al-Qaeda and Taliban.
Yes.
And that was also somehow being funded by Iran, and it like, as you know, I was 15.
Yeah.
Didn't like, I was like, this does not make
it didn't really make sense to anybody paying attention. And then when you were like, I don't think that makes sense, they would just yell, they hate us for our freedom.
I did look up because I was, like, I mentioned at some point, it was like, they called it the Coalition of the Willing, which feels like such a neg.
Yeah.
To be like, you are the
Yeah.
And that was the people who invaded Iraq. That was the Coalition of the Willing.
Yeah. Also, there was the whole France thing.
Oh, the Freedom Fries?
Young listeners might not know at this time, we also hated France. Because France was like, this doesn't really make sense what you guys are doing. And we were like, fuck you, France, you're dead to us.
No,
and we renamed all of our French fries Freedom Fries.
Did anyone actually do that, though?
Yes, I saw people do that.
I have never eaten a Freedom Fry.
I never ordered a Freedom Fry, but the Freedom Fries existed in Fresno.
That feel like... Are you going to North Fresno sometime?
Yeah, I hang out at River Park sometimes.
See, this is your problem.
It's right across from Pinedale. In Pinedale, Eric Martinez's house and the YMCA concerts.
Yeah, really great shows there.
Really great shows.
I'm just saying, like, it's on you for going to River Park.
They had the Freedom Fries there. So, in 2010, 7 people were arrested in Iran, some of whom were claimed to have ties to this Radio Farda, this new thing that RFERL created. And the Iran Labor News Agency reported these people were connected with Radio Farda and had gone through the process of selection and training in Dubai and Istanbul, and some of them had been officially employed by the U.S. intelligence service. Iran's state-owned Press TV reported the 7 people arrested also included 2 Central Intelligence Agency operatives.
Okay, so it's
So they're still not fooling anybody. Everybody's like, we all know you're the CIA. The only people who didn't know that these places were the CIA were just casual listeners.
I have to imagine, right, like, if you're like a cat, like, you're like, what's this fucking new radio station? Who's starting I guess, actually, you know what, 2003, the golden age of radio. They're playing Rage Against the Machine on, it's the Battle of Los Angeles album has just come out.
Yes. Yes, System of a Down, fresh on the airwaves.
Yeah, that's all across Iran. They're just like, they're like, hey, Armenian guys, this is like your neighbors.
Yeah. So, the group planned, according to Iran, the 7 people arrested, planned to stoke unrest and violence on a march scheduled for February 11th of 2010, according to this report. And that date marks the 31st anniversary of the 1979 Islamic Revolution that obviously toppled the U.S.-backed Shah in the region. So if you want to know more about that, you should listen to our episode about the American coup in Iran called Iran So Far Away. It's a whole episode about it. Kenna and I did it. So it's before David's time. But yeah, if you've listened to it or if you're just up to date on what we've been doing to destabilize Iran for decades, that will make total sense to you. So in 2014, RFE/RL and VOA together launched a new Russian language TV news program called Current Time.
That's such a...
I know, it's not a great name.
I mean, it's like anodyne in like that like way that shit like that is always...
Totally. No, you're totally right. So the goal was to push back against Russian media. But there was a heavy... They were working it here. They were like, we're bringing, quote, facts, not lies. Basically saying everything Russian media tells you is a lie. Thank God you have us Current Time. This is 2014 to tell you the facts.
There are topless women running around with balaclavas.
Yes, we've got the Maidan Revolution.
Pussy Riot's
happening. Who also, I'm pretty sure they're CIA assets.
That feels right.
That feels right? They live in LA now, and they're always like, so one of their like weddings was like in Vogue or something.
They played at the Capitol Theater in Olympia, and it felt like it was like really. It seemed like all the Riot Girl type folks who still live in Olympia were like into it, but I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
guys.
this is pure speculation that Pussy Riot is the CIA. This is not a fact. This is not research. This is David and Madeline being like, it feels like some CIA shit.
Can you imagine if you were Pussy Riot and you were like not CIA?
And you're like, what the fuck?
We were just running around in Russian Orthodox churches, topless with balaclavas on, shouting.
For fun.
For fun.
I mean, that could make sense to me too. It just
that
feels
that
too
actually
convenient.
does sound
yeah,
fun.
I mean, both of them sound right. People accuse me of being a CIA all the time.
I mean, you're not?
No. Regrettably. I keep trying to get in with the CIA so then I can do like maybe like a double, triple, quadruple asset thing.
I feel like
you
should probably not like...
I shouldn't say that.
You gotta...
Yeah, I know. It's hard. It's hard. The CIA won't just hire anyone. It's not like the good old days of the Cambridge Five.
That was... I mean, the Kim Philby being vetted and nothing reported against.
Yeah.
For a guy who
wild.
was in the Communist Party, like, who had, like...
This is for the people who listen to our Patreon.
It's, like, the number of times that people were like, they're clearly communists.
And everyone was like, no.
No.
Yeah.
And, like, there was a guy who was like, hey, there are these rich private school boys who now work for British intelligence who are all communists. And they're like, it couldn't be.
Not our guys. This means I should hold off on getting the I hate the CIA neck tattoo.
Was that your neck tattoo?
I'm thinking so. In cursive, I think it could be cute.
I was looking at a guy today on, like, honestly, on the Day Control Instagram page. They had face tattoos, and I was like...
I was going to get mine on the back of my neck, but I'm not opposed to a face tattoo.
It was, like, the under the eyes thing, and I was like, that looks cool.
I think it looks good. I mean, before face tattoos were a major trend, I used to always tell people that, like, a face tattoo always looked good. Mm-hmm. And then I saw some that I was like, oh, yeah, I don't love that one, you know, regrettably.
I feel like the SoundCloud guys kind of killed it, to be honest. But, okay, so they're Iran...
Current Time comes out.
2014.
Yeah, so
no, we're in Russia.
Current Time comes out, and they're like, we're going to do facts, not lies, to make Russian people skeptical of their government. And, you know, yeah, there's some stuff about the Maidan Revolution, which I feel like we talked about, Maidan, M-A-I-D-O-N, and that woman from Ned basically took credit for it.
Oh, that's right. This is, like, Ukrainian shit, all of that stuff.
So there's a lot of stuff going on here at this time that the CIA would want to be involved in. Now, this obviously isn't the first time that RFE and RL have been involved in Russia, right? RL had been active in trying to disturb the former USSR, and there was even at one point in the 1950s a whole separate thing called Radio Free Russia.
Can I make an observation here?
Yeah.
Russia's not communist.
No.
They haven't been communist. It's 2014. They haven't been communist for like 23, 24 years. Like, it's been...
Yeah, by the time this happens, yeah. But they're still an enemy.
But it's like, right, like, at this point, it's just power. Like, that's the only thing that you can say.
Also, though, Russia is one of the few countries that's very vocally and verbally pushing back against American imperialism.
Though I will say, through the 90s, they were like, we fucking love American imperialism. This fucking rocks.
2014 is really when Russia started being like, you know what? No, fuck you. We're not going to do it.
You ruined our economy for 20 years?
And you ruined the whole world.
That seems not fun.
So, again, sometimes people are like, I love Russia. And I'm like, it's not the USSR. Like, communism hasn't been there since 1991. But the one thing that Putin does that I understand why people are like, okay, this part is true, is when Putin talks about American imperialism, he's not lying. And it's an easy thing to talk about because we're doing so much to destabilize the whole world.
No, I mean, this is, right, one of those, like, living in the United, it's like, Putin, not a nice guy.
Don't love Putin.
We live in America. Let's deal with our own backyard.
Let's deal with our own bullshit. If Putin's like, you guys got some bullshit over there, we're not gonna be like, you too. Ours is kind of bigger. Ours is kind of worse.
Also, we live here.
If
I lived in Russia, maybe I would be wearing, I would be topless in a church.
Yeah, in a balaclava running around. No, that's totally true. But yeah, so, this is why Russia, even though not communist anymore, has become like a key target, again, of the CIA propaganda efforts because they are verbally starting to push back in a major media way on the global stage against American imperialism.
I mean, it's also, right, like, there's a competition for resources. Like, Russia sells a lot, and Ukraine sells a lot of natural gas and shit to the EU.
Yep.
Right? So that becomes this, like, look, they're not buying from us.
Right, totally. It's mostly business and power, but I think there is a little bit of, like, ire there for, like, on Russia's end. They're like, oh, get the fuck out of here, America. You've done so much to fuck with us.
And I have to imagine for, like, if you are in American intelligence, you're like, listen, I've seen the files that they haven't declassified. We spent so many years
trying to fuck with Russia.
And then you guys, you had a decade of liberalization. Yeltsin was crazy. Fun times. It wrecked your economy.
Yeah.
You went crazy right-wing weird.
Mm-hmm.
and we're no longer friends. Like, we spent so long trying to, like, woo you into being free market liberals.
And you spit in our face.
What the fuck?
Yeah. But, you know, it's like, it's hard because you're like, well, everything that Russia says about the United States...
It's true.
It's true! And we've done more they didn't even know about.
And also some of the stuff about the Nazis in Ukraine.
That's also
true.
Yes.
And it's like
a broken clock is right twice a day, and Russia is right when it comes to American imperialism and the Nazi thing in Ukraine, which we're actually going to talk about in a second.
Okay.
So, this TV station was pretty successful. It expanded. It became a 24-hour digital and TV stream. And in 2016, Jeff Shell, who was then the chairman of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, remember that's what the USAGM was called at the time, was actually barred from entering Russia. And a Gizmodo report about this straight up called Jeff Shell, quote, the chair of the U.S. propaganda arm, USA. At the time, BBG. Which I respected that, because most news sources from the United States would not say that. And Gizmodo was like, oh yeah, Russia wouldn't let Jeff Shell in. He's the chair of U.S. propaganda arm.
I mean, I feel like it is, there's no, it's on news. Wait, this is the straight facts people, right?
Is Gizmodo straight? Oh,
no.
Right,
like, they're like, we give them the facts, not the...
Okay, so the guy himself is Jeff Shell. So he is the chairman of the Broadcasting Board of Governors that oversees RFE and RL, under which the Facts Not Lies Current Time Network is. So he's like grandpa daddy.
What's the Fox News, the like just the facts or whatever fucking tagline?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know, but it's like that. Yeah. So they're not wrong. Gizmodo's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, but it also seems like you would be a bad journalist if you were like, this random man.
But you would be surprised. Only AP News will identify some of these as being state media. So AP News will call Radio Free Asia, which we'll talk about in a little bit, state media. But most other news sources do not acknowledge that these are U.S. propaganda networks.
So that they're like these very independent journalists.
Yes.
Who are your like war-torn reporter type, like the guys with like the fishing vests on with like the camera.
Yes.
Like
this is how they're marketed. Yes.
And they've gone to the front lines of Ukraine for you.
Yes, exactly.
And now
Shell, right? Jeff Shell. Yeah.
Schnell. Is like infamously kept out of a country in which, you know, if free press existed,
why wouldn't they let in this definitely not propaganda guy? Yeah, no, this is true. I mean, even NPR is like, okay, maybe Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty and Voice of America started out as propaganda rags, but don't we think maybe now we should not call them that? And you're like, why? They call themselves that in internal documents.
Okay, Carr thought, I hate NPR.
I hate NPR too.
It's like, I have fond memories of listening to like This American Life in the backseat of my parents' car as like a 10-year-old. It is some of the most like blatantly weird propaganda bullshit, MSNBC style, like false whatever. Like it's
liberal news. It's Democrat news.
It's bad, and like the number of times I have heard them do like whataboutism over like Gaza genocide stuff. Like where it's just like, why am I even listening to this? Why am I like, what is the point of this? Don't you see like that, like UCLA like the like Jewish students at UCLA are also afraid. That kind of shit.
No, they totally do this. You know what's really interesting is I was on a plane recently, and the guy sitting next to me heard me and my friend Lizzie, who's also been on the podcast, actually talking about how we thought Biden had COVID and was going to die. We were like, then he's going to go and he's going to die. So this guy heard us, and he was like, oh, I have a question for you guys. Like, I work with the Democratic National Party, and I'm just always wondering, like, why don't young people like Democrats? Like, I know you guys aren't Republicans, so, like, what is it that you guys don't like about about Democrats? And I was like, I mean, the genocide's a big deal, and not just this one. It's like the constant genocides, like the endless genocides around the globe, and taking our tax dollars and funneling them to weapons contractors, and then the weapons contractors sell the weapons back to the U.S. government, so then the U.S. government uses the weapons in these wars, and then our money goes to kill children in all these other countries, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing in Palestine? And also, like, what the fuck is happening with Puerto Rico? That's a colony, and like, Hawaii should be free. Why did we annex that? And like, why are we still at war in Korea?
Okay, I feel like you went far afield.
Because I was just like, it's like we just we're all in everybody's business but our own.
Yeah.
And it's all to advance business and military interests. And the Republicans are just like, we're doing it. And the Democrats are like, don't pay attention to foreign policy. Oh my God, what if you couldn't get abortions? That's so sad. And it's really hard because materially in my life, when Democrats are in power, nothing really changes. And the president, regardless of who he is, Democrat or Republican, just takes the policies of the previous president and yes-ands them to make them worse. So it's like, okay, George W. Bush, bad on immigration, bad on war. Obama, worse on immigration, still did the wars and added drone strikes.
Well, okay, Bush was doing... I feel like Obama was like, can we do this in a way where I'm not going to get lectured about it?
Right.
That was like if people are looking for an Obama doctrine, it is Spotify playlists.
Yes.
And I don't want to be lectured, so no big military thing. Just drone strike a wedding.
Yes, exactly.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, so I was talking to him about this, and I was like, yeah, really, it's like the American imperialism thing is wild. We're not into it, and I don't like it. And I think most young people are really turned off by the foreign policy objectives of the Democratic Party. And he was like, that's really what you're thinking about? Like, granted, I talk to older people most of the time, but most older people just care about, like, can I get an abortion, and can my kids go to college, and can I afford my mortgage? And I was like, okay, we know young people, we care more about other people. We care about children in other countries. We care about people in other countries as well. And also on top of that, we're not stupid. We see that, no, you're not able to send your kids to college because we can't have free college because all of our tax dollars go to the military thing.
And also,
it's all one issue. It
is more profitable to make college exorbitantly expensive and then distribute the cost to a student loan program that can be like extraordinarily predatory for students, while at the same time being like, basically any job that is going to put you in the middle class, we are going to tell you need a college education for. Right. Like, it's, I was like, because I care about kitchen sink type shit. I am poor enough to where I have noticed the fucking price of eggs.
Yes.
Right? Like, it is significant. It is crazy. And I was telling my very Democrat type sister, I was like, look, man, Biden's relationship with, for example, the credit industry that comes out of his time in Delaware creeps me the fuck out. Yeah. And the fact that, like, you get people like Feinstein with her, like, investment banker husband. You get people like Biden with his ties to the credit industry. Why would I vote for these assholes? They're not
helping.
They're not on my team. Like, they're not interested in me.
Well, the thing that was wild is that this guy was so shocked, and he kept asking me questions but wouldn't let me finish, and then was just yelling over me about abortion rights.
On a plane?
On a plane, and he kept saying rape so loudly that the flight attendants had to come tell him to be quiet.
No.
And so it was such a Democrat thing, though. It was like a microcosm of the Democratic Party. It was like, why don't young people vote for us? And then we're like, well, actually, here are our complaints. And they're like, shut up! You're gonna not be able to get abortions! And I finally was like, got him on board. He was like, okay, fine, I'll admit it. And this guy was wild. He, like, got his doctorate in economics under Milton Friedman at University of Chicago. He was like the thing.
I feel like you're I'm sorry. There cannot be that many people who had Milton Friedman as an advisor. I feel like
it was wild.
Yeah,
it was fate
we could
that
just
together.
Like go through a list and just be like, is it this one?
Oh, I have his name. He asked me to email him.
Okay.
So finally I got him where he's like, okay, fine, you got me. Materially, there's no difference in the foreign policy objectives of the Republicans or the Democrats. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, domestically, though, there are. And I was like what? And he just kept coming back to abortion. And I was like...
Did you even go infrastructure? I feel like the one you do is infrastructure.
Infrastructure. But yeah, ultimately, he just got back to the abortion thing. And then I was like, right, but like, abortion was taken from different states under Biden. And he was like, well, Biden doesn't have any control over that. That's the Supreme Court. And I was like, right. So what's the goal then in me voting for a Democrat? Because we know that the Democrat president doesn't control that. And the Supreme Court's pretty stacked right now.
And it also kind of seems like even when Democrats are in power, they won't really fight for the Supreme Court.
Right. And also, Obama had the opportunity to codify Roe v. Wade, and he said it wasn't a priority. And I remember that. So it was just this really, like, baffling thing. But I'm like, this is, like, such, like, a microcosm for the Democratic Party trying to deal with young people. They're like, why aren't you happy with our talking points? And we're like, we're pretty much mad at the whole system, and you guys aren't really doing anything to challenge that. You're not standing up for people. So anyway, it was just, like, really, really fascinating. But I don't know where that aside came from.
We've had like a whole dog Michigas happen
like
over here.
So much. That's so true. But yeah, so whatever the case, Democrats still, shockingly, have no idea what young people care about.
And have the same foreign policy propaganda type things
as Republicans, which this guy admitted. He was like, all right, you got me on the foreign policy. Yeah, we're all the same.
So, for example, and we're doing Russia in 2014.
Oh,
is
okay,
that where we? Oh,
yeah,
I'm getting.
You're good at this.
Not bad at transitions.
So 2016 is when Jeff Shell, then the chairman of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, which was the old name for the USAGM, was barred from entering Russia. Russia was like, you're a state propagandist for the American government. Fuck no, go home. So then Gizmodo was like, yeah, this guy's the chair of the U.S. propaganda arm. And then in 2017, the next year, Russia's Justice Ministry told RFE, RL, and VOA that they had to register as, quote, fulfilling the role of foreign agents if they wanted to operate in Russia. I will say, this is a golden age of Gawker Empire. This it really is Gizmodo, peak Gizmodo.
Like
Hulk Hogan suing them.
Hogan?
Yeah.
That's what I was going for.
Did you see Hulk Hogan at the Trump thing wearing off his shirt?
I could not, it made me, it was the most uncomfortable I've ever been watching a person speak.
I felt oddly at peace with it.
I was like,
this makes sense.
Something about, it was an intensification of a certain kind of bleeding, aggressive petulance.
Yes.
That I was like, I do remember his rap album fondly that our friend Sandy used to play a lot.
Yeah, I do remember that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, Russia was like, you guys are U.S. propaganda outlets, so you need to register as such with our government. And this fulfilling the role of foreign agents basically means you're assets of a different country trying to meddle in our sovereignty, and our people deserve to know that. So then in 2021, RL was just designated as a foreign agent by the Russian government and had all of its bank accounts frozen in Russia.
That, I'm beginning to see the roots of a certain we freeze bank accounts type thinking.
No, totally. So 520 cases ended up getting brought against RL for not disclosing itself as a foreign agent operating in Russia. Because when Russia asked in 2017, they were just like, we're not doing that. No. Mm-hmm. And Russia was like, well, you are. So cut to a few years later, Russia's like, we're designating you as a foreign agent, and you did something illegal here, and we're taking you to court for it. And fines were levied against Radio Liberty for around $2.4 million.
Let me guess, they paid them promptly and with alacrity and with a certain amount of, shame-faced, oh, you got us.
We tried to destabilize your government. We did an illegal. No. In response, Radio Liberty filed a case at the European Court of Human Rights accusing the Russian government of violating their freedom
to do propaganda.
Which I honestly to try to overthrow the Russian government.
I actually think it would be a very funny thing if the ICJ or whatever was just you know what we should do? Legalize espionage.
Yeah.
Just listen guys, you can't talk to us about espionage.
You're free to do espionage. If you want to overthrow a sovereign nation, hope you're good at it. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what if you're bad at it, you're gonna die because there's no court to come to. So if you're bad at it, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah. I mean, I think really, when you're an American, you're like, of course we try to overthrow the governments of our political enemies. But you really need to think about this from an American perspective. Think about how much everybody lost their shit when Russia took out Facebook ads trying to influence our elections.
I continue to think about the Mueller sexual.
Oh yeah, like a whole culture.
A whole culture of developed around Russiagate that I think my mom has a Comey is sexy.
Yes.
Kind of mug somewhere.
Yeah, this all makes sense. But it's we have been doing this there. To such a level of intensity, so consistently for so long. Now, in 2024, this was RL we just talked about. RFE was listed as an undesirable organization in Russia, which basically means you can't do business here.
They're
no.
Yeah.
No, we know your propaganda. Get out of here. Stop. So this is really interesting to me because, yeah, most Americans have heard, obviously, about Russiagate, Russia meddling in our elections. In 2016 is when that happened via online advertisements and misinformation. But I think most Americans have no idea that USA state-sponsored media has been operating in Russia as early as 2014, depending on how you want to think about it, but going back even
to the 50s.
The 1940s or 50s, with the expressed goal of destabilizing the Russian government.
I think, right, once you're look, everyone does it. If you're going to defend this stuff, eventually you're just going to have to be yes, but we are good and they're bad.
Right, you have to get into this moral high ground where it's okay when we do it, but it's not okay when other people do it, if you want to pretend this is just normal and okay to do.
And then you say, we are good and they are bad. And, eventually you're going to, because it's going to be about everything. They'll be, the prison camps, or if it's China, they'll be, Uyghurs or some shit. And then you go, we're, the largest carceral state in the world. We, imprison more people.
And also, everything Adrian Zenz posts, when you look at it, you're like, what? This doesn't make sense.
Well, okay, but even, grant the injustices of other peoples of the world. You're just I don't know, man. We have our own shit.
Yeah.
It's bad things. Eventually, it's going to come down to Russia bad, America good.
Because we America.
And at that point, it's sort of this weird, because America is this, weird amalgam settler colonialist state, ideologically, that just becomes, a bizarre form of nationalism.
Yeah.
Right, because it's based in nothing other than,
where you were born.
Hulk Hogan yelling at you.
Yeah.
That's,
then he loves Donald Trump. And then the guy from the Democratic National Committee or whatever being
yelling at you.
Yeah, our foreign policy's the same, but we care more about rape, you dumb fucking woman. And I'm what? I don't feel like you guys do. And he's shut up.
Shut up and vote for us.
I'm telling you, we care about rape as I scream the R word on the plane, regardless of who might have trauma surrounding sexual assault. And I'm right. I'm a little uncomfortable right now, but okay.
That seems
very inappropriate.
I really, after this, you're just going to show me who this guy is.
I know, I need to. So Utaro, when writing about RFE, the lawyer, said, a glaring inconsistency in the RFE model is its resort to the very methods of persuasion that its broadcasts purport to combat, right? Because remember, they're we're fighting the state propaganda machine with the truth. So Utaro was no, you're not. You're fighting the state propaganda machine with state propaganda. So Utaro goes on, advocates of the RFE model wish to sell democratic ideals by relying on oppressive methods of content control. So it's you're not free, you're doing the opposite of freedom. You're doing very tightly controlled, limited release of information in a trickle-down format to support your agenda and your goal.
And that, okay, this is maybe far afield or whatever, but I'd the propaganda thing, because as someone who's been accused of it quite often, I'm always curious because it leads to a sort of epistemology problem eventually of well, you can't really know anything then. And then people get very defeated.
You can know some things pretty confidently, though.
And I to me, I'm always I don't know. I feel you should be cautious.
Yeah.
You should probably do your read more than one article.
Well, this is what I always say. I always say, first of all, don't trust anything with anonymous or paid sources. You need more than that. Anonymous or paid sources is not enough to trust. Second of all, don't trust anything whose funding can be traced back to the United States government if you're in the United States and trying to figure out what's happening in other countries. It's not going to happen. There are political enemies. That's why we pay these news organizations to report on them. Yeah. Okay, so if it traces back funding-wise to the CIA, to USAGM, to NED, National Endowment for Democracy, There's a reason we want you to hear that story, and it's to advance a political agenda. It's not because it's the truth. So discount those. So then what you're left with is, sources basically who are unpaid, right? Who are named, who go on record, and who are not being paid by the U.S. government. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And then from there, you need to consume multiple different sources on the same issue and find the consistencies between all of them, and that's the stuff you know is probably true.
But I guess my larger point is, it seems like one of the sort of intentional or not, but useful to the United States knock-on effects of doing propaganda shit like this and then being discovered is that it creates a tremendous amount of uncertainty.
Right.
For where everyone's just well, fuck, man, what do I believe?
I believe nothing. No, that's true. It makes people feel defeated and hopeless, and they don't want to do that work. That's totally true. I mean, so Utaro basically is saying, look, Radio Free Europe is doing what it says every other government is doing. It's doing the thing. All the reason for it to exist, to combat misinformation, it's doing the very same thing that if this were a different country, RFE would be reporting on as evil.
RFE is taking out Facebook ads again,
basically,
and being Putin didn't discover buried treasure and the Adrian Sea.
Right. So Utaro says that in this regard, RFE actually might be violating the UN Charter, which states that all members should refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. So Utaro says this prohibition may be held applicable to radio advocacy designed to overthrow communist rule in the receiving state. Think about Hungary. Mm-hmm. They fully created a revolution in Hungary just through propaganda. So Utaro is hey, I love America as much as the next guy, but I'm pretty sure what we're doing is illegal, and we got to cover our asses here and just be smarter. So he was not a communist. He's not even sympathetic to communism. He's just legally, this is messy and bad and stupid.
Wait, but this is also, we're in our times. Well, communism is...
So no. Utaro wrote this, I believe, in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
So just going back to the methods we've seen them continuing to do. We broke timeline, and I didn't alert you, so that's my fault. But yeah, this is going back to the reasons why RFE was listed as an undesirable organization in Russia in 2024. So basically, in this definitive study of propaganda that John B. Witten and Arthur Larson did, that most people reference when they're talking about what propaganda is, they contended that a brand of communication labeled subversive propaganda is definitely going to violate the principles of international law. And they said that propaganda is considered subversive if it is calculated to overthrow the existing internal political order of the state. So all experts looking at what, is this even legal? They're all pretty much in agreement that this is probably not legal, and if anybody wanted to take us to task for it, they definitely could. So the fact that in 2024, Russia was just you know what? You just can't operate here. It's illegal for you to operate here. That was actually them being pretty nice and chill about it.
I mean, it seems like the United States would eventually would just be we don't give a shit. That's how
we deal with things. There's no repercussions for the United States. We basically own the UN.
The response to the ICJ rulings has been basically it's a shrug.
Yeah, it's a shrug. Exactly. There's no consequences for the United States. So in 2021, also breaking timeline a little bit, Belarusian authorities raided RFE and RL offices in Minsk, and they confiscated equipment and searched the homes of reporters there. And they said that RFE and RL were committing financial crimes, including illegally funding protests.
They were doing Maidan.
Color revolutions, yeah. So this is what we find with things CIA affiliated. CIA will go into a country, find anybody it can there to make it look like an organic uprising, and then pay them to do basically a fake revolution.
Do you think, because it was the Hong Kong one where they all wore the same jackets or whatever, right? Do you think every now and again they're shit, man, do you think we can recycle the jackets?
Probably, honestly.
Do you think anyone will notice if, the people in, Minsk are wearing the same jackets as in Hong Kong?
Yeah. I mean, the Hong Kong one was wild, because they were oh no, we wish we could be owned by Britain again, haha.
Yeah,
that one you were just whoa, how did you even find people to do this one?
That one, I don't even know if it's appropriate for me to. I have a great vintage T-shirt from '97 that's finally freedom, and it's them painting over the British flag with the Chinese flag.
Oh, that's pretty.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not just Russia who's been catching on, basically. All these other countries are catching on. Like, this is definitely propaganda and you're trying to overthrow our government. Belarus. Of the $810 million 2020 budget that USAGM has in general for all 5 of its information wings, or propaganda wings, and then also that internet thing we're going to talk about later, RFE-RL took up $125 million of that budget. And that's the second highest amount after Voice of America. So RFE-RL still remains huge today, even though all these other countries have caught on, even though everybody knows what it's doing. Today, RFE-RL has media in 27 languages and in 23 countries and employs more than 1,000 journalists, and it reaches 42.1 million people every single week.
Okay, so why are people listening to do you think they're, like, really charming?
I mean, I think that I'm going to get into what it looks like when you go to their website today, and I'm going to give you an example of the types of reporting it does.
Yeah.
So, it markets itself still as being independent journalism, fighting back against corrupt governments around the globe. But yeah, it itself is a tool of a corrupt government, our government, the United States. So in 2018, RFE-RL began advertising propaganda to American citizens as well, which, remember, the Smith-Mundt Act meant that wasn't supposed to happen to us, but 2018, there's been amendments to it. RFE-RL ended up buying several ads on Facebook, targeting users in the USA. Okay,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Right. If I understand, obviously the CIA has done a lot of shit in the United States.
Yeah, they're supposed to be foreign only, and FBI is supposed to be domestic. Like, COINTELPRO was the FBI. It's domestic.
Don't get me started about Daryl Gates of the LAPD and his ties to the Phoenix program.
Yeah.
Like, why are they operating it? Like, why are they operating in the U.S.?
Because operating in the U.S. actually helps advance their foreign policy objectives.
Okay.
So the ads that RFE and RL took out on Facebook to target users in the United States included several human interest stories about Russia, being like, oh, look at these brave people fighting back against evil, evil Russia in Russia.
Oh, is this like in Ukraine or some shit?
No, in like pussy riot type stuff.
Oh,
like, look at the people in Russia who hate Russia.
There was the like there was some other fucking like Fem whatever group.
Okay, so stuff like that. It'd be like human interest stories about Russia, like that, and also a graphic about how much everybody loves NATO. NATO's so popular. Everybody loves NATO. NATO's not a bad guy. NATO's good. Everyone loves NATO. You love NATO.
Who's over here loving NATO?
Well, I think it's pretty transparent, the goal of RFE and RL in doing this. They want people to think, because, you know, the Russia-Ukraine thing obviously had a lot to do with NATO.
Yeah.
And it had a lot to do with treaties that the United States had made with Russia, going way back, being like, we're not going to advance any of our influence in countries that are nearby you. And the United States obviously broke that in trying to court relationship with Ukraine, and Russia was like, this violates our treaty. So, you know, it's all this. So this specific stuff is trying to get Americans to think like NATO is totally awesome. Why would anybody have a problem with NATO? And also everybody hates Russia, actually.
So
it's transparent, the goals. So
they couldn't just do that through like another way. Like
this is the way to reach the Americans, right? Remember, the USA has laws restricting state-funded media organizations from promoting content in the United States. That Smith-Mundt Act we talked about. But there was the change to the Smith-Mundt Act that said, okay, you can if people are requesting it. And they are really loose about what requesting it is. Maybe you just go to the RFE-RL website and that's technically you requesting to see the information. But if it's a Facebook ad, there's no way to spin it where people are requesting that, because nobody is requesting to receive ads from Facebook.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. You're NPR. I can't remember any of their damn names. I hate all of them. They all have stupid voices and stupid names. You're an NPR person, and you're like looking for a source on like what's the deal with NATO, right? Can you go to the RFE website?
Yes.
And then like
and
cite
they very often do.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why too, when you read things from Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch or UN reports on human rights, you will find that they are regularly citing RFE, RL, and other USAGM outlets like Voice of America, like Radio Free Asia, without even saying these might be untrustworthy sources. So everybody is citing the USAGM outlets with the exception of AP. AP is the only one I've ever seen be like, this is state media. This is American state media. Everybody else is just like, no mention. They're just like, it's totally real and trustworthy and reporting on everything they say.
So, like, Smith-Mundt, yada, 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 journalists can backdoor that shit in anyway.
Yes,
right?
they totally can. So, according to the New York Times in 2018, the ads that ran on the organization's Facebook page were uncovered by a Syracuse University researcher, Jennifer M. Grigiel, who was able to view them because of a recent policy change by Facebook. In May, the social network began displaying more information about ads on its platform, including about where the ads were targeted and the buyers. And that's how we know, because this information became public. And none of these posts were labeled as political ads by Facebook's algorithm, even though they obviously were. So, today when you visit the Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty website, you'll see areas they focus on for the news are, basically former Soviet countries or areas that the U.S. thought were under the sphere of influence of the Soviets or that they might go commie in the future. So literally, these are the only places I'm about to read off that Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty report on.
Okay, and when was the Syracuse University researcher?
2018.
And so this is... Communism is dead. It's rotting. It's gone.
It's gone in Russia, especially.
Yeah, it's not the Soviet influence. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. Well, we're still, though, targeting countries that came from this, which is wild. And you really see that original CIA Cold War influence. So, the first place that they're focusing on is Russia, with a huge emphasis on Ukraine.
Yeah.
The second place they're focusing on is Iran in a major way.
Who had some Soviet...
Yes.
Type, yeah.
And then also we did the coup and we overthrew their government because Mossadegh was trying to do too many socialist land reform type things.
Which was like one.
Yeah,
it was like, let's do the oil.
Let's do the oil, right. So also they're focusing on Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. Then they're doing Afghanistan and Pakistan. Then they're doing Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia. Then they're doing Bosnia, Bulgaria, Hungary, Kosovo, Moldova, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Romania, Serbia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Those are the only areas on their website when you're like, the regions you guys are reporting on, it's only those places.
So the Balkans, the Caucasus, and the Middle East and Central Asia.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, as a sampling, if you go on Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and you look under Russia and Ukraine, you might see a recent story from today as we're recording this, July 21st, and it is titled, Lviv Residents Mourn Slain Politician. And you click on it and it takes you to a video. It's a video that's 1 minute long, and the caption of the video reads, a makeshift memorial appeared in the Ukrainian city of Lviv on July 20th, a day after a gunman shot former lawmaker Irina Ferion in the head. People brought candles and flowers to the site of the shooting. The campaigner for the Ukrainian language was taken to a hospital in critical condition and died after surgery. So when you watch the video, it shows people mourning Ferion's death, and it interviews people who are mourning. So one guy said she obviously was a good person, and somebody else said she wasn't afraid of anything or anyone, and somebody else was like, she defended the Ukrainian state, to the end. So you look at this and you're like, oh, this is so sad. Some evil person assassinated this really beloved, sweet, kind lawmaker in Ukraine. But when you look up who Ferion is on other news sources, most are like, oh, you mean the neo-Nazi? Yeah. According to a different news source, quote, Ferion was a member of the extreme right Sayovoda Party, formerly known as the Social National Party of Ukraine, led by neo-Nazi Oleg Tyagnybok. A Kiev hotel room in which she lived was reported to have been used by far-right activists to shoot civilians during the so-called Maidan coup in the city in 2014. Ferion expressed open sympathy for World War II neo-Nazi collaborator Stepan Bandera. And also, Business Insider confirmed that Oleg Tyagnybok was widely accused of being an anti-Semitic neo-Nazi, and everyone outside of Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty is like, yes, a Nazi was shot today.
So they're like, they went to a Nazi funeral. Do you think they just didn't know?
No, they knew.
I like the idea. My dumb sensibility finds it very funny to imagine just the hapless journalist on his first day in Ukraine being like, oh my god, I'm just start small, human interest story.
Well, okay, so this is what's interesting though. This is the kind of thing, and when you look at this, you're like, I mean, it's not wrong that this woman was killed. She was killed.
And people probably did mourn her.
Yes, Ukrainians were like, we love this neo-Nazi politician. Just like people in the United States love neo-Nazi politicians here too.
I am sure, I can't
Think about how many people would cry if Donald Trump was killed. All those people are wearing the ear thing because he got maybe shot in the ear. But it feels relevant to mention she's a neo-Nazi, and every other news organization did, except for Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. And this is what the kind of skewed information you're getting.
Look, are we going to mention everything on the day of this woman's death?
Too soon, David says.
Soon.
Let the neo-Nazis grieve the loss of their leader. Okay, this gets us through the section on Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. The episode is already 2 hours long, which means I did think it might be a three-parter. It might be a three-parter, but we're through the bulk of it. So I think next week we'll be doing the remaining kind of wings. We'll do Radio Free Asia. We've done a whole episode about before, so we'll just do a brief overview of that, and you can listen to our episode called Radio Free Whatever for a more detailed take on it. We'll also talk about the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, which is kind of in charge of radio and TV Marti. And then we will talk about the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, as well as Open Technology Fund, which is the internet-y thing I was talking about.
This is like they're trying to break the firewall in China.
Yes, so we can spread propaganda to China about how awful China is to the Chinese citizens.
Because, like, Chinese people... They have like a relatively like high standard of living. They report like a lot of like good life satisfaction.
They have
at the moment.
We'll talk about this, but they have higher home ownership rates, higher literacy rates, longer life expectancy, overall higher government satisfaction than us, and China eradicated extreme poverty, and they did such a good job at it that they actually created a new classification for poverty so that they could tackle the next rung up of poverty.
They had to level up their poverty game.
Yeah, they really did, because they did such a good job. So we're going to get into that when we talk about things in more detail in next week's episode. This really was a Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty focused episode, but it's a big deal, so I'm glad we did it.
And my takeaway... Guys, the horse has been dead for like 35 years.
Yeah, leave him alone. He's already dead. You already killed him. You killed the USSR. Let
you
go.
Need to get a new, find Francis Fukuyama, ask about the end of history, find a new ideology that is an anti-communism. You won.
Yo, we won. We won.
You won. I won't say we.
Yeah, you're not identifying yourself with American imperialism voluntarily, David?
The American population at large really lost that.
We did lose the Cold War. Yeah, that's true.
But American business interests...
Privatize everything!
They fucking won.
America, it's for sale.
Alan Dulles is spinning happily in, I'm assuming, a sort of like weird stew of alcohol
in his grave. Yeah, he's really, what's it called? He's like marinating in the booze. Yeah,
just whiskey and gin and just bones.
I love that. Some people don't like gin. I'm a gin fan.
Who doesn't like gin?
I don't know. People don't like
gin. It's like people who, I don't know, fancy vodka.
Is there fancy vodka?
I recently threw a cocktail party and I just got Monopolova because it's got the best label.
I was like, the proper name for mono. You contracted mono at the cocktail party.
No, it's like Polish or some shit, and it's got like the...
I don't drink vodka.
Soviet looking...
I don't drink vodka because the first time I ever got drunk, I got drunk off vodka and Mountain Dew, and I got so violently ill, I was in high school at Tasha's house. The next day, I threw up into a beef jerky bag in her bedroom.
That is a good reason not to drink.
Yeah.
I've thrown up a lot of alcohol and I still drink most of it.
Yeah.
But someone was like, "Oh, I only drink Tito's."
Oh.
And I was like, I think it's this. Like, listen, they're all triple distilled. They all say vodka on them.
Right.
It's going in a cocktail.
It's probably gonna be fine.
You're gonna be fine. Mm-hmm. I found it gin, though, it has a flavor.
I like gin.
It's got, you can be like, I like this gin and not that gin.
No, that's true. That's totally true. Well, one of my finest moments on social media was when Hendrix sent me free gin. They didn't even pay me for it. They just sent me the free gin, and I was quite happy.
Wait, are you telling me I can get free alcohol if I become... I'm not.
It's not worth it, David. Don't go in there. I'm trying to save you.
I'm not. Everyone hears me stutter. I'm not going to be a social media type person.
Well, I was thinking actually we could one day make a TikTok for the podcast, and we could videotape ourselves, and we could post our hot takes.
Oh, like our car takes?
Yeah, like our car takes, and we could drum up some controversy.
I said you at one point were like, we should talk about the things that we fight about.
Yeah.
And I was like, all this Ben Shapiro ass over here trying to I have seen you go in for the kill for social media likes and attention.
Yeah. Not for attention. I don't enjoy it. I do it because it's a compulsion. I can't fight deep with
Yes,
people.
okay.
I do it because I'm ill, not because I enjoy it.
I do not want to participate in this compulsion. I would like to participate in the intervention that will be happening now.
Oh, I love that. Okay, all right, everybody. That's the episode. Come back next week for part 3.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. If you would like to join us on Patreon, you can find us there at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. For $3 a month, you can access bonus content there. But if $3 a month is too much for you to spend right now, we totally get it, and we're just happy you're here. As always, you can find the sources for this week's episode just by scrolling down a bit in the description.